For those of you wondering why I look like I just emerged from a cave, I've been sick for the last several days. I'm hoping I have enough voice to carry us through this video. So let's get to it. Today we're talking about Better Call Saul Season 2, Episode 7, Inflatable. We start this episode off with a flashback to a young Jimmy sitting on his ass sweeping a floor, in Cicero, Illinois. Of course, we don't know the year because they stay vague on Better Call Saul as to what year it is. Jimmy finds his way into a Playboy magazine and is enjoying that. As he's looking at that, he hears a customer come in. The customer, long story short, is conning his dad out of $5. Jimmy's aware that it's a con. He tries to bring his dad over and talk reason to him, and of course his dad goes too far the other way, ends up giving the guy $10 and is trying to give him free spark plugs. There's a moment while Jimmy's dad is in the back looking for the spark plugs that Jimmy's at the register with this guy, and you can see that the guy has lots of money because he offers to give Jimmy money for cigarettes. So it's overly apparent that this is a total scam. He tells Jimmy that there are two kinds of people in the world, wolves and sheep. So at a certain point, when you see Jimmy's dad give this guy money, you think of the money that Chuck recalls that had gone missing. And of course, if Jimmy's dad is giving away all this money, which Jimmy makes mention of, there would be no record of it. So you think, poor Jimmy, here it was, Chuck blamed him on this, and you start to see that maybe Jimmy didn't do it. But then just as you get that ray of hope, after the con man leaves, that conned poor Jimmy's dad out of the money, you see Jimmy open the register back up and go ahead and steal some money. So maybe the full amount that drove his father into bankruptcy wasn't stolen by Jimmy, but probably a good chunk of it was. I think that this little 10 minutes encapsulates the show totally. It gives you both sides. You see for a minute that maybe Jimmy wasn't such a bad guy, but then maybe he is. The rest of the show that's about the deepest thing in this entire episode. The rest of this is just little dribs and drabs here and there, so we're just going to kind of go through them. Next we go to Mike and Saul. This is actually where this show starts in real time. They're meeting with the DA and a judge, trying to have the gun charge thrown out on Tuco. The DA isn't pleased because Mike has changed his story, and she accuses him of either being intimidated or bought off. At which point Jimmy stands up and acts offended, and they decide to leave. We get to the next major plot point of this episode, and basically this is the engine that makes this entire episode run. Jimmy is in his office trying to draft a letter of resignation to Omar. And Omar is incredulous. He can't believe that Jimmy's going to quit this job, all the perks, and he's trying to remind Jimmy of everything. Somehow in the course of this conversation, he educates Jimmy to the fact that Jimmy would have to pay back his bonus if he quits within the first year. So now Jimmy has to go to work and figure out how he can keep the bonus but become unemployed from Davis in Maine. After telling Omar that he was kidding, Jimmy decides to go for another approach. So he leaves. He has to commute back and forth to work. It's a pretty long drive. I guess Davis in Maine is out in the middle of nowhere. So on his way back into Albuquerque, he sees a wacky, waving, inflatable man, or what do you call those?
Wacky, inflatable, arm flailing tube man.
Okay, that.
Yes.
One of those guys. And when you first see this, you think that maybe I personally thought that he was thinking about having his own business and putting one of those in front of it, because we know that he does later. It's only after the commercial that you realize he drove away looking at this thing smiling because the colorful outfit the wacky, wavy, inflatable guy was wearing inspired him to go back to his natural taste in clothing as a way to try to get fired. So we now get a montage of Jimmy trying to be fired. Not only does he have the colorful suits, we get a long montage of that. Probably takes up like 4 minutes.
It reminded me of the montage I did with Marco when they were scamming all the people at that bar.
Yes, and in that it was more entertaining than the montage of Kim making phone calls.
Way more entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, we could never get enough of Jimmy's colorful suits. After we come out of the montage, Jimmy's still going. He's doing things like not flushing the toilets and owning up to it. He goes and purchases bagpipes from a pawn shop, and that's the final straw. He finally gets his wish. He gets fired. On what amounts to Jimmy's exit interview, he's informed that they are all well aware of what he's doing and why he did it, and that he just wanted to keep the bonus. And Jimmy pretty much admits it without saying it legally. So Jimmy's now free of Davis and Maine. We now cut to the law offices of HHM. Jimmy asks Kim if she will be his partner. Kim looks him dead in the eye and asks if he will be doing law the right way or if he will be resorting to his usual ways. Of course, she said it differently, but you know the meaning. For once, Jimmy went to lie to her. Then he felt the weight of Marco's pinky finger ring, and he actually told her the truth, that he was going to do things his way, and that's why he left Davis and Maine to begin with. So good for Jimmy for telling her the truth. Of course, having heard this truth, she turns him down. Now we cut to Mike. He's looking at a house with Stacy. Stacy's very enthused about the house. Mike, of course, is never enthused about anything. She asks, finally, if this is the house that they can get. Mike agrees. On the way out, they run into a realtor. And here's our first real Easter egg in a couple episodes. This is a realtor from Breaking Bad Season 4, Episode 3, Open House.
Oh, is that the one where Marie steals the silverware from the...
Yes, she steals the antique spoon. For those of you that don't remember, Marie was Hank's klepto wife.
Klepto.
Same realtor. So there's your Easter egg for this episode. I couldn't find one last episode. I had a lot of people tell me different things that they thought. None of them panned out for last episode, so we got one this time. We now cut back to Jimmy at the nail salon in his beat-up old car, which I kind of missed. It was good to see it again. Omar pulls up in a U-Haul and helps Jimmy move back to the salon. The only thing that is in the U-Haul is Jimmy's expensive-ass desk, which they struggle to get into the back of the nail salon. Jimmy gives the old desk to Omar to dispose of as he sees fit. They part ways, and that's it for Omar for now. I told you, though, as Omar drove off into the distance, I believe, for some reason, he'll be back later.
I'm sure.
For some reason, they just seem to make a bigger deal of this guy than somebody that just would never be back. We then go to the back with Jimmy where he's shown setting up his office, putting his pins in a Davis and Maine cup, setting up his answering machine. There was a small detail there. When he went to set up the answering machine, he went right back into the phony Irish accent. But then he erased it and went to his true voice. So once again, it signifies kind of a shift from what he was doing in the first season. Very quick insert before we go to commercial. Mike is staking out Hector. That's it.
That's it.
He's across the street watching Hector do business. I think that this is going to be just insurance in case Tuco or Hector come after him later. He's going to have a lot of dirt on them.
And we definitely know that Tuco and Hector, they're going to live through this TV show. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to kill either one of them. Nacho may not make it. We now go to Kim meeting with Schweikert and Associates. Just a bunch of get to know you. Are they going to hire her? So we'll skip through that. On the way out, she makes the big mistake of calling Mr. Schweikert Howard, which to me signaled, even in her head, it was one of two things. It was either she was trying to self-destruct this meeting because she really didn't want the job, or somewhere in the back of her brain, it was her brain telling her that, somewhere in the back of her brain, her mind was telling her that Schweikert and Hamlin are the same guy. That's why the reason for the mix-up. Freudian slip is what they call it. After the meeting and after the slip-up, Kim goes on the roof and smokes a cigarette and looks at the business card that Jimmy had showed her that he had made up earlier when she turned him down. She tears it in half, thinks about it a while longer. Leaving Kim on the rooftop, we now rejoin her in front of Jimmy's nail salon where she pulls in next to his beat-up old car. She goes in to see Jimmy, and the nail salon lady tells Kim that he's in a meeting.
So she waits.
She waits. All 3 seconds in TV time. Out comes Jimmy with the 2 film students that he's made the commercials and whatnot with in the past. Looks like they're going to be up to something in the next couple episodes. So Kim goes into the back to meet with Jimmy. Kim's proposal for Jimmy is a little bit different. Jimmy wanted to start a law firm together. He wanted to be partners. Kim doesn't want to be tied to him because he's a little off the hook, a little crazy, a little loopy. So if something happens and he's disbarred, it could affect her. So her proposal was that they share an office, but they remain 2 separate entities. They're not a partnership. They're 2 different law firms. Jimmy takes a moment, thinks it over, and accepts. Credits. That's it. episode was over fairly quickly. What'd you think?
It was good. It was all right. I really liked the part where he's trying to get fired. I think that was like the the best part of the episode.
I really felt that this entire episode rested on like two things. The first 10 minutes for me gives you some insight into who Jimmy is and why he became the way he was. Maybe if his father wasn't such a pushover, maybe Jimmy wouldn't have become such a con man. But I think that Jimmy seeing that the way things were, he could only see things could be one of two ways. Maybe if Jimmy's father was just a little bit more of a hard ass, Jimmy would have ended up a little more like Chuck. Speaking of Chuck, I think we're on like 2 episodes in a row with no Chuck.
It's great. I'm loving it.
I'm not missing Chuck a lot. He'll be back next episode from the coming attractions. It looks like he's going to get sick.
Good.
Before we give this grade, I had an ominous feeling, and I can't even point to why, but I shared it with you. I do not believe that Kim is going to live through the end of this series.
Yeah.
I think that Kim is going to die. I can't put my finger on why or how, but I believe that maybe it's going to be through something that Jimmy does or has done wrong. That is my inclination.
That's an interesting prediction.
The reason I think so is because she's so important to him right now, and yet once we get into Breaking Bad, and even past Breaking Bad when he's in Nebraska working at a Cinnabon, there seems to be no mention and no concern for her. So something has to completely eliminate her from the picture. And I think it would be death before her disowning him, but I could be wrong. All right, what's your grade for this episode?
A 90.
A 90.
90.
Yeah, I feel it was a good middle-of-the-road episode. A lot of plot development happened. They got him out of Davison, Maine. I'm a little concerned because now they've just put him into a partnership with Kim, so it just feels like they're in a holding pattern until they get to Saul.
Yeah.
I don't see, like... I understand they now have a season 3, but damn, get us there.
I'm sure they'll do it right.
I said a couple episodes back that it will be halfway through season 4. So if I'm right on that projection, we've got a ways to wait.
Yes, we do.
All right, guys, we'll be back next week. Hopefully my voice will be better, and maybe I'll even shave before the video. Thanks for watching. Stay vigilant.